You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today is Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We're all editors of Industrial Equipment News and Manufacturing.net with about 15 years of experience covering the industry. Every week, we take the 5 biggest stories in manufacturing and discuss the implications they might have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to reach us via email, you can just hit us up at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Jeff, how you doing today? I almost forgot the name of the podcast.
It's good to know that we're doing a podcast when you're introducing the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm doing well, but I am playing hurt. I just want to let you know. We'll get into it later.
Okay.
But I'm okay right now.
You have a podcast-related injury?
It is not podcast related. Okay. But I'm getting through the podcast despite an injury I encountered last night cutting the grass.
Oh, jeez. He's got his feet.
I can't wait.
Anna, have you been slashed or maimed by a lawnmower lately?
That is not something I do.
All right. Very good. Very good. Well, let's jump into our first story this week. Opel unveils tiny entry-level EV. Opel, the German car maker, recently unveiled a small electric vehicle, the ROX-E SUM. The SUM stands for Sustainable Urban Mobility. The two-seater has a 5.5 kilowatt-hour battery that can be fully recharged in 3.5 hours using any household socket. The EV's range is limited to slightly less than 47 miles per charge, and the car tops out at less than 30 miles per hour. And it is truly tiny. The car is less than 8 feet long, about 4.5 feet wide, not counting the mirrors, and weighs just over 1,000 pounds. The entry-level vehicle is designed to bridge the gap between an electric scooter and a passenger car. Opel hasn't disclosed the ROX-E's price, but the car will be marketed towards new, young drivers beginning in the fall. Anna, are you the target demographic for an Opel SUM?
I wonder if it translates differently in German because the ROX-E-Sum is such an awkward name.
What are you driving? I'm driving a ROX-E-Sum.
ROX-E-Sum?
Mm-hmm.
ROX-E-S-U-M? I don't know. I think it's a niche product.
Yeah.
It's the range on that is so low, obviously. So I think we need to talk about this in the context of that. But this is first going on sale in Germany, where super small cars are more the standard than what we'd see here. Mm-hmm. Whether or not this vehicle ever makes it to the U.S. is to be seen. They have not mentioned which specific markets they plan to expand to after Germany, but they said other markets in 2022. Probably not the U.S. I see Jeff shaking his head. I think, it's a bridge between a scooter and a car. I think this competes more with a scooter. Yeah. And Opel is saying that it will be priced as such, that it's actually going to be priced below that of a small car.
Oh, wow.
I like it for cities where parking is a challenge. Opel is really emphasizing its role in shuttling kids to school, like teenagers to high school. So it'll be good for parking. I mean, it's literally like half the length of a midsize SUV that we would see more in the U.S. Okay. So you can see why that would be appealing, especially from a safety perspective compared to putting your 15, 16-year-old on a scooter or a bike in a busy city setting. Like this might be actually safer for them. And the way it's classified in Germany, they said 15-year-olds can drive this.
Oh, wow.
So it's very specific to that region, some of those benefits, I think.
Okay. Jeff, sounds like you're not going to be a huge advocate for the ROX-E-Sum.
ROX-E-Sum.
I don't think I could fit, to be honest. I mean, when I looked at it first of all, there is some amazing engineering that went into this vehicle. Yeah. It's not really that much smaller than a smart car. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's about the same width, but it's about 10 inches shorter. Okay. Now, that 10 inches for a guy like me, 6'2", 6'3", that makes a difference. Yeah. Like, I've been in a smart car. I can sit in the front seat of a smart car, but I need that much space that's there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can't do without less. So even taking off the 10 inches, that is going to make that extremely difficult for me to get in there. So they're limiting their potential customer base a little bit, a little bit taller, a little bit bigger. What is unique, though, is because even though the frame really isn't that much smaller than a smart car, it's 1,000 pounds less. Yeah, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. When you look at taking out basically the internal combustion components of it, putting in a battery and shedding 1,000 pounds, I mean, that's impressive.
That's a small battery.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I think this is sort of a rideshare type of vehicle. I think it could have great applications there. The fact that it can only go 30 miles an hour, even in a city setting, that almost feels like a safety concern potentially. If you need to move quickly, I mean, even driving in a city where you're only supposed to be going 25, 30, I mean, sometimes you need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
You need to get moving.
Get
just
through
to
that
keep
intersection
up
or whatever.
with the pace of traffic. So I would be concerned there. I don't see this make it in the U.S. I cannot imagine this in any type of setting. I mean, other than maybe on like a really big campus. Like we've got a big software company just up the way here. Yeah. If it's a huge spread out campus, I could see this being perfect for something like that.
That's a good call.
Yeah, for sure. Like replacing like a Cushman or something, you could just ride it around in a.
Well, and plus it could potentially be safer. We've seen some really bad incidents with those scooters. People who should not be on them, don't understand exactly what they've got going on. Fatalities and things like that with not being able to control a scooter. This is more enclosed. Obviously, it's a car. So definitely some safety benefits there to it. So yeah, it's sort of mixed feelings about it in all honesty for me. See what kind of applications. I think it's a good place to start. Not sure what the right application is.
Anna, is this enough to get millennials and Gen Z in a car?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, you know, I think that people are looking for lower price points for sure. And we're not seeing, as we've mentioned in the past, we're not seeing a lot of innovation from the auto industry on small cars.
Yeah.
You know, if this is the generation that likes rideshare, they like scooters, they like, you know, transportation outside of like the traditional family SUV.
Yeah.
Maybe this does work, but to Jeff's point, I agree that in the US, I mean, maybe someday, but definitely not now.
Yeah.
And see, I could see this going the other way. If this is your first real exposure to a vehicle and you get in, you're like, this is it. Yeah. This is what driving a car is. It could be kind of a turnoff, to be honest. Yeah. So I don't think that this type of vehicle it needs a little bit more. Yeah. Just even space. Yeah.
Well, and if it's based on the specs, you wonder like if it were used for an application like you know, in a campus setting or something like that, like could it tow anything? Like, because that would probably be helpful to have like storage space or something. Like, probably not.
No, the storage space I found particularly hilarious because it says storage is limited to the passenger footwell. And
isn't that for storing your feet?
Yeah, and what the company calls a smart hook, which they say the specifications say it's capable of holding a XXL size shopping bag.
Oh, or like a jacket. That would be nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about taking this in campus, I don't even know if it can carry your bag.
You can't have your backpack on.
Yeah. The reason I ask about millennials and Gen Z is because we've talked about it a lot, about how they're just not driving, not interested in cars. I looked into the Federal Highway Administration, which found that in 2018, only 61% of 18-year-olds in the U.S. even had a driver's license, which is down from 80% in 1983. The number of 16-year-olds with licenses decreased from 46% to 25%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's why I was curious, because I didn't know if this was like, it served some of the things that, you know, because teens now are looking for something that's more environmentally friendly, something that's less stressful. And because they just don't seem to care about cars, I was wondering if this is like, they're trying to like, suit those needs.
Okay, I can only speak from personal experience when it comes to teenagers and their attitudes on cars. So my oldest daughter just was not into it. Now she's up at school. I think that's going to come very quickly. Okay, there's more of a need for it.
Sure.
My two youngest daughters, they can't wait to get in the car. They don't care if it's electric. They don't care if it's a dump truck. They want a vehicle that is theirs to drive and go and get out of the house. Okay. So I think it's great to say, they want these more environmentally friendly vehicles. It's just your attitude towards driving. Yeah. It's an individual thing. And one of the things that I look to is when I was growing up, I needed the social interaction. That vehicle was the way for me to get out of the house and hang out with my friends and do whatever. They can do that with a laptop, a phone, whatever. There's still a social dynamic there. So if you're a little bit more of not as an outgoing type of individual, you just don't feel that need, that pressure to get until you get out there, you get a job, you have to get back and forth, whatever the case may be. I think that's a greater dynamic in impacting driving preferences right now than just, it's not environmentally friendly and I'm worried about that.
Well, this is even a perfect fit for the antisocial because you can't fit anybody else in with you.
That's true.
All right, our next most popular story. 1 in 4 executives fired workers over Zoom blunders.
Blunders.
A recent Bloomberg report found that 25% of executives at large companies have had to fire someone over a Zoom call slip-up. Zoom calls went up from 10 million per day at the close of 2019 to 30 million Zoom calls per day in 300 million per day in April of 2020. It turns out that not everybody was competent when it came to virtual meeting platforms. The problem is that even small blunders could cost companies business, including being late, not knowing when to mute, or inadvertently revealing proprietary information. The survey also found that bosses don't completely trust a third of their workforce to be effective in a work-from-home setting. Now, Jeff, I want to get to that last point in a little bit, but can you believe so many people are being fired over not wearing pants on the phone?
Yes, without a doubt. And it does vary, okay, depending on the situation. When it comes to unplanned stuff, I was on plenty of these Zoom calls. You hear a dog barking, a kid runs into the room. All of that is fine. I don't have a problem with that. You can't always handle that. My cat would jump up on the table, whatever the case is.
Fired.
However, and as much as I want to just absolutely burn this particular vendor that we all worked with, there would be times when I had a very serious concern, issue, a reoccurring problem that we were dealing with one of our internal systems. And when you get a hold of this person and they're doing a Zoom call and they're sitting there petting their dog, that doesn't really reinforce a sense of urgency or confidence in that they're really going to get after and take care and solve our problem and that they really care about us as a customer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So when it's that type of behavior, yeah, I would have loved for that individual to have been fired because I was very, very frustrated in that circumstance. On the other hand, when we also brought on a new vendor, we did everything through Zoom. They were fantastic. Everybody was promotional. Everybody was super professional. Even though the one individual I had to work with was a Cubs fan, I was able to look past all of that stuff in the background because he was prepared for the call. Did everything that we needed done. Even if he did, I know, I'm sorry. Okay, I had to look past it. Even though he had his Cubs, 2016 World Series hat on all the time, I could look past that because we were getting the job done. So I can understand the frustration that would come out of this situation if these folks were on a big team call with a customer and, you got somebody put his feet up on the table and not taking it as seriously, as professionally as you'd want them to.
Anna, we understand the hate over the Cubs, but did you know that Jeff hated dogs?
No problem with dogs.
Sounds like you do.
Yeah. No, Anna, we've all had slip-ups on Zoom calls, and I guess I never thought that, wearing a hat was potentially going to get me fired for being unprofessional.
It's a fireable offense if you're Jeff. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that this was a little harsh. Not Jeff, you're right. No, I meant like the firing of the workers. I don't know. Nobody asked to be like thrust into this weird alternative work reality. And I hope these business leaders provided some sort of a grace period as people adjusted.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Zoom is not very hard.
Yeah.
I don't know what the ramp up period is, but a few days, I don't know. Yeah. We read so much in manufacturing and distribution about technology implementations and workers trying to actively work around those. And so you wonder if this sort of sheds some light on some of those technology resistors. Yeah. Maybe they don't have the skill set that they, purport to have. Yeah. These are the people that are insisting on using spreadsheets when the software exists to not. And that these people are in every company, right? That they just resist. They kind of lag on technology because they don't like it or they don't want to learn it. Mm-hmm. But I do think that managers can do maybe a better job of training, pointing out the benefits, even if they feel obvious from the top level. But I get that it's easy to come across as unprofessional when you're forgetting to mute or whatever. But in my experience, people were, as you said, very forgiving of one another's noise, pets, kids, whatever. Yeah. How bad were these infractions?
I feel like it's got to be repeat offenders.
Yeah, and what were they doing? Yeah. I didn't ever get the feeling from somebody that they were concerned about anybody's stuff. We're all at home. Nobody wanted to be there. It was the pandemic. So.
I've certainly had the call with the dog just blasting the entire time. It's oh no, don't worry. They're just in the cage, just well, do you want to go let him out? Like, we could take a minute. And the other point I wanted to bring up is how the survey said that, bosses don't completely trust a third of their workforce to be effective from a work from home setting. And I understand that some executives just want more control. But the one thing that I have learned throughout the pandemic is that this is proven that if you have a workforce that wants to do the job, they will, and they will do it to the best of their ability, regardless of the circumstances.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I found that to just like be a red flag for a lot of micromanagers out there.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tough situation, though. You have to remember that a lot of people, especially in the early part of the pandemic, were juggling childcare in tandem with trying to work. And that's like an unwinnable game,
Oh, I know. Hey, we all posted content and sent scripts in for our videos at 2, 3 in the morning because it was just the only time we could work.
But, people were on the verge or in the midst of like completely burning out. So I do hope that in these situations that people were treated with a little bit of, I don't know, gentleness and understanding before it got to this.
Yeah. Listener Jesse says people should check, and I actually had a note that you just really need to check out the best Zoom fails out there. I mean, we got to remember the classics like the potato boss and the cat lawyer. Like, I mean, if it were not for this pandemic, we wouldn't have the hilarity of viral Zoom fails.
I haven't caught any of these. I've been too busy working.
Ooh.
Great, Jeff. You sound like a lot of fun. All right. Also, the other thing is, can we just right now call it no more Zoom backgrounds? No more fake backgrounds. I don't care if it's a window to nowhere behind you. I just want to see it because that's way less distracting than when half your face goes away because you catch a funky glare.
Okay. Can I also add, though, that like we can still use the phone. Like we had the phone before and then suddenly we have to Zoom with everyone. It was never going to be a face-to-face to begin with. Why does everything have to be a Zoom now? It doesn't have to be.
How about when you're the person that calls in and there's like the 5 minutes of just, oh, so are you having trouble with the Zoom?
Yeah.
You're not going to call. Oh, you're just going to call in.
I can't see you.
Yeah.
I can't see your face.
Yeah. I'm lying down in my bed and I'm barely hanging on. That's why I'm on my phone, all right?
I am in tears.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on audio only. Is that what you want to hear?
All right. Our next most popular story this week. Tesla on part automated drive system slams into police car. On Saturday, August 28th, a Tesla on autopilot slammed into a Florida Highway Patrol cruiser on the interstate. The car narrowly missed the officer who had pulled over to assist a disabled vehicle. The 27-year-old man in the Tesla and the driver of the disabled vehicle suffered minor injuries, but the trooper wasn't hurt. Researchers say Teslas are having trouble with parked emergency vehicles and perpendicular trucks in its path. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recently opened an investigation into the issue, and since 2018, 11 Teslas on autopilot have hit first responders who have used flashing lights, flares, an illuminated arrow board, or cones warning of hazards. In those crashes, 17 people were injured and 1 was killed. The investigation could lead to a recall of other enforcement action. Jeff, it sounds like you're starting to get on board with a little bit of regulation, if only for this.
I hate how I feel like I'm constantly waffling in these conversations because I don't want government to be overly involved in the development of this type of commercial technology. But when people are too stupid to use it correctly, it seems like somebody has to.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here. Tesla put something out, and we did a story earlier how Elon Musk even said, it's not great.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with this one.
Yeah.
All the instructions from Tesla say it is not an autonomous system. You still need to keep your hands on the wheel. People don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it does seem like there does need to be some sort of involvement just because, as you said many times, people can't have nice things.
Yeah.
So I don't know, other than having some sort of enforcement involved here. Maybe it's a separate type of licensing that you have to go through in order to have any vehicle with any type of autonomous functionality to it.
Yeah.
Just so that you're somehow qualified or something to have these vehicles. Because I mean, geez, in this case, the trooper was almost taken out.
Yeah.
Just because he was doing his job and somebody else had the vehicle in the wrong mode and wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
It's not, it is on Tesla to be responsible, but it's like not their fault that people are misusing their product.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I get caught because I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah. Anna, I feel like if it was any time for the NHTSA to take a cue, it was the not great tweet. You know, you had a window in between the tweet and this accident. Really should have seized that moment.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a long leash, Tesla.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting because I just saw a report on another technology in development that helps driver assist and future autonomous vehicles read road signs, because the researchers involved said that it can be easy to trick these systems into misreading road signs due to like light reflections, weather, even stickers like on a stop sign.
Yep.
And that technology is intending to assist LiDAR-based vision systems. Tesla doesn't use LiDAR famously. They use like cameras and sensors.
Right.
But as you can see, they're not the only company that's struggling with accuracy on these systems. So they're not alone there. But should we allow these systems to be tested by average drivers? I mean, back to Jeff's point, I think that's a big ask. It's a risk. It makes me feel like Tesla, seeing stuff like this makes me think that Tesla has not come very far since 2016, when we first saw, I think, the first death attributed to autopilot, when a person driving a Tesla on autopilot slammed into a semi because the autopilot did not recognize that semi as being there and thought it was the horizon.
Right.
That has happened a couple other times since then, as recently as this year, where someone has slammed into the side of a semi. I think that people need to stay vigilant when using autopilot, but if they're not, then that's a problem. I don't, I know you don't place much blame on Tesla here. I think I do more than you, because I do think that they have a responsibility, even if the legal framework does not exist at this point, to assist that and come up with a way that's better than this. Because to your point, I mean, that officer almost lost his or her life just being there on the side of the road.
Because he had his emergency lights on.
Like, that's terrifying that we're going to subject our first responders who already have a dangerous job to more danger because we're not willing to put any kind of restrictions on this. I don't think that is right.
One thing, because unfortunately we wind up talking about autopilot problems quite a bit on the podcast, and we often bring up like putting it in a little bit more context. So I wanted to look up some stats. In 2019, there were 18,510 crashes per day in the United States. So even if we take all 11 of these bad accidents since 2018, that's still only like 0.06% of accidents per day. So I understand that we do kind of got to rein in the technology a little bit, but Tesla's taking a lot of heat. I mean, rightfully so. People are getting hurt, but we got to kind of put it in perspective that the ideal scenario is 0 crashes, but it's still not a lot in terms of the grand scheme of things.
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about a lot of different technologies that have been put in place to help make vehicles easier or safer to drive.
Yeah.
Think about power steering.
Yeah.
Power brakes, automatic transmissions, automatic headlights, all that kind of stuff. And as you look at the number of fatalities, not necessarily the number of crashes, but through the years, the fatalities have come down significantly, at least especially since like the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
It was over 50,000 fatalities a year. Right now, we've been very consistently in like that mid 30s range.
Yeah.
Excuse me, for like the last 5 to 10 years. So, and that's with more people driving, higher population, more vehicles on the road. So in theory, all of these things that have made vehicles easier to drive hasn't necessarily meant less crashes, but it has meant less fatalities.
Right.
Autonomous driving and I know like these accidents get a lot more attention than all of the other safe routes and all the other situations where they have been in charge and there haven't been problems. But you do wonder then, is this going to be one of the first technologies put out there with safety in mind that could potentially tilt things the other way?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Moving on to our next story. It's a Jeff story and you could tell because it has the greatest headline ever: the dumbest tech thieves ever. On July 6th, 2021, thieves broke into a major shipping company's overnight drop box. While they were caught on closed caption TV cameras, they appeared to make a quick and clean getaway. However, the high-tech gear they stole was manufactured by Romby, a provider of global supply chain visibility products. For multiple days, spanning multiple crimes, the thieves were driving around with 25 bright yellow GPS trackers. Officers in the Santa Clara Police Department were elated when they found out that the thieves had stolen GPS devices. They received hourly location updates on their suspects as they traveled more than 760 miles during the next 12 days. The trackers were en route to a COVID vaccine manufacturer to track pharmaceutical shipments. Now, what's crazy, Anna, is that this wasn't even the first time that this company has had its trackers stolen.
It's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
I like to picture these detectives, and if it were me, I would be like, oh, I'm just buried up to my ears in this case. I cannot get away from my desk and just close the door. They're like knowing full well where the thieves are, where the goods are. Just waiting to pounce. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it was risky in the first place for these thieves to target goods in transit or a warehouse because I think more technology there is becoming commonplace in terms of tracking. But I saw another story very recently that reminded me of this. It's about a technology that Samsung has embedded into their smart TVs to deter thieves, and they were able to use it recently in South Africa. So according to reports, they were able to identify the serial numbers on a bunch of TVs that were stolen out of a warehouse. And they were able to make use of their ability to remotely brick TVs. So they can't exactly like real-time track them. They can't brick them until they're connected to the internet, but you can't like set them up until they're connected to the internet. So great technology, though a bit reactive. I mean, who knows, in case of these TVs, like they're probably already sold, and gone by the time this comes into play. I don't know if it's as good of a deterrent as something like what Jeff laid out in this other video, but interesting nonetheless, the kind of ideas companies are coming up with to keep tabs on their goods and maybe make them a little bit harder to steal.
Jeff, I'm no criminal, but don't you Google the loot?
Google the loot.
If you don't know what it is, probably a good idea, right?
Right? Just like, hold on a second, man. What do we got there? Get him out of the car. No.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they grabbed this out of like a Dropbox.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to like why were you putting this stuff fairly expensive electronics or complicated electronics in a Dropbox, which probably that you should feel good about that. So the major carrier, but do these Dropboxes need to get more secure too?
Are you talking like an Amazon pickup point or something? Is that what you mean by Dropbox?
No, it's like I think this was actually FedEx. I think it was like a FedEx Dropbox that they put in. Now, I'm not super familiar with it. I haven't used them and stuff, but you'd think there's got to be enough security in there that it couldn't be easy to get stuff out of it.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know if that needs to be, beefed up a little bit.
Do you think it was an inside job?
I don't.
I mean, if you will allow a moment of conspiracy
David
there,
does.
This was, as Jeff says, a great case study for the company. And I'm just saying they got a lot of press about how great their GPS trackers work. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Maybe they put an ad on Craigslist like, hey, got a real loose security on our Dropbox here.
Anyone want to do some jail time for our marketing campaign?
We swear we won't press charges.
If it was an inside job, I mean, kudos to these thieves for taking it to the next level because they continued stealing stuff.
Yeah.
Like they just kept going.
They just were into the role.
Yeah. So, I mean, they just kept going with it.
It's called method acting, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing some real method prison time now. So, But I mean, the best part was the cops just basically going, really? Yeah, they stole GPS trackers. Let's just see how this plays out.
That's hilarious.
Getting everything set up basically to grab them.
I do appreciate the patience but I mean, I to your point earlier, Anna, like 12 days, just like, we're gonna follow this case to the end, and just what were they checking their phone? Like, no, they're just having lunch now.
Yeah, they're at Del Taco. It's fine.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they were doing. You can see the map, like for every place they went.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
All right. Our most popular story on the websites this week, train Tbones truck carrying a wind turbine blade. On Sunday, August 29th, a train crashed into a semi-truck carrying a wind turbine blade in Luling, Texas. The truck tried to cross a railroad while turning right and didn't make it. And a Union Pacific train struck the wind turbine, which pulled the semi-truck over, tipped it on its side, hit a bunch of parked cars, a utility pole, and even hit a business. Miraculously, no one was hurt, including the driver of the truck operated by a Minnesota-based Northern Lights Specialized. The crash caused all kinds of damage and shut down a major road for several hours. Transporting wind turbines is actually very challenging. According to NS Energy, the distance between most wind facilities is too great for companies to build manufacturing facilities within close proximity. Moving turbine parts requires planning, Anna, that often takes more than a year. And I feel like maybe they just needed one more day for this one.
Oh, you know, we talk about a driver shortage in long haul trucking. And if you look at that closely, it's not that trucking companies are having trouble recruiting or hiring. It's really a retention problem. And I've seen statistics that cite as high as a 90% annual turnover rate in trucking, which is really hard to fathom. But then you see stories like these, and I think there's a few things in play here. So one, perhaps drivers not as well trained or skilled in some of these more challenging scenarios. Yeah. That's clear, right? But two, it sounds like an exceedingly challenging route, to your point, and extremely challenging cargo. I mean, does that driver like just dust himself off after this and get back in a rig? Or is he like, forget this, I will do something else for 25 miles or $25
not getting back in that rig.
Well, no, I know, but like like that was probably traumatic and terrifying for this driver. And local officials even acknowledged like that's a tough intersection. You know, something tells me this driver didn't realize this, or he probably would not have attempted to sneak across it and attempt that turn quickly when that train was coming. So I just feel like there's a lot of things in play here. But my point is, this does not, when you look at the problems the trucking industry is having retaining employees,
It's not going to help it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's not. This is not something that somebody's just going to like bounce back from. Like this guy's gone for sure. I think like,
and it's not just that driver. I mean, that video, Jeff, if you watch the video, has been viewed more than 10 million times. And I mean, I'm even going to put the disclaimer out there. Some harsh language there by some surprised cameramen. Just needed 2 warnings on that one when we posted it to the site. No, really, there's going to be cursing because a train hits a truck. Jeff, what were your thoughts on the story?
Well, 2 things hit me. First of all, excuse me. I was surprised how much goes into just setting up a wind farm. Like the stats you alluded to, 650 truckloads, 140 rail cars, and 8 ships.
Yep.
wow.
I mean, that is a ton of logistics, as you guys were talking about. They're over a year to set up. So I had no idea the amount of planning and supply chain coordination that was involved in setting up a wind farm. That's kind of mind-blowing. So you can see why maybe there's not as many. And then when you throw in situations like this, what it also brings to mind, and Anna alluded to the fact that there's been issues at this intersection. The article, I believe, something like 13 incidents over the last 20-ish years.
Right.
So that means every year and a half, 2 years, something happens at this railroad train crossing.
Just pretty
To
scary.
me, that kind of shines a light back on a lot of the infrastructure stuff that we're talking about. If this is a common shipping lane or a highly used route for these drivers, and they have trouble with this train, with this rail crossing, we obviously need to do something there. It's a perpendicular turn.
Yeah.
They're going west to north. I mean, that isn't common.
Yeah.
So it seems like we need to be able to invest in ways to make this safer. To your point of keeping truck drivers or just keeping everybody safe. I mean, this caused a ton of damage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough what happened to that semi, to the train, to what it was hauling. Thank God no one else was hurt.
I wonder how long he was at that intersection before that happened. Because, I mean, that turn looks like he's got to come all the way across all traffic and maybe swing back. And I still don't think he makes that turn.
No, I mean, there's like buildings and stuff in the way for him going as wide as he needed to. I think that's why it was taking so long.
Yeah.
Why stuff was slowed down. I mean, just think about all of the other in the scope of what happened, much less important, but it delays everybody in that area for how long while this individual tries to get around there.
Yeah.
And then how long is that going to, stalemate everything else there after this type of accident? I mean, so it just, again, we're talking about spending all this money in infrastructure, and it looks like a lot of it's going through. Here's a reason why we need it.
Yeah. I was just kind of half joking because people are worried about wind turbines killing birds, but quite a bit more damage when they're just trying to get them to the wind farm. Anna, to your point, the American Trucking Association, the industry says that the industry is short 60,800 drivers right now. And if nothing is done, the shortage could reach 160,000 in the U.S. by 2028. So, stuff like this certainly isn't going to help.
No.
The cost of having a truck sit idle at a company's facility can range from $500 to $1,500 per day per truck because they can't find a driver. Wow. And one of the problems is that the age requirement, and we've talked about this before, but federal law prevents drivers who are younger than 21 from hauling freight across state lines, even though younger drivers can obtain these commercial driver's license. in individual states. The federal government recently created a national database of drivers. Oh, this is another big issue for the driver shortage, but they recently created this national database of drivers who failed drug tests. Now, we understand we don't want drivers on the road if they failed a drug test, but the ATA, which pushed for the requirement and fully supports it, says that there are 70,000 drivers that have been deemed ineligible in this database because of failing a drug test.
Yeah.
And only 12,000 have gone through the process of kind of being able to return to duty. I mean, that's another, it seems like the shortage is going in the wrong direction.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, but it's been bad for so long. You just, like I said before, I don't think it's an issue of they can't hire people. I think they just can't keep people. So what happens? I mean, this just recurs and recurs.
Yeah.
Well, I think in a lot of these, when I read that report, I thought a lot of it was like marijuana use, right?
Yeah.
And what they called recreational use. But the problem there is, even if that shows up, if somewhere they tested positive, some insurance company is going to find that.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're looking, it's not just about giving that individual another shot. It's also dealing with insurance costs that are going to come in. So then it's not just about getting that person out there. It's the extra costs associated with the fact that you do want that person. Weighing that against, do I not hire him or do I have my truck sit idle?
Yeah.
So puts these shippers in a tough spot too.
Very good. Let's move on to In Case You Missed It. The stories that came out this week maybe weren't as popular, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. I'll start. My story this week was a manufacturer raises wages to compete for employees. Gear Motions manufactures custom cut and precision ground gears for everything from oil pumps and cars to medical devices. Earlier this month, construction began on the company's new factory in Tonawanda, New York. Staffing the new 56,000 square foot facility, however, could be a challenge. In a recent NPR article, President and CEO Dean Burrows discussed the company's challenges in finding skilled labor. During the pandemic, many of Gear Motion's machinists took early retirement. Burrows says that it's difficult to attract talent because he's not even looking for skilled labor. He will take anyone. He raised wages by 20% and offered to train prospective employees. Still, he's struggling to find workers, particularly for second shift positions, as he competes with companies like Amazon and even McDonald's. Burrows has been forced to push our orders out or just refuse business entirely because he says it's not worth the risk to his reputation if he can't get employees who produce the product. Now, I thought this had a couple of interesting things on the industry because, raising wages by 20%, and he's still having trouble bringing people in.
Yeah, it seems like it's happening in every industry, though.
Yeah. Jeff, I don't know if you had a chance to check out this story, but I think it's great that he is making another manufacturer more competitive, especially as, he's competing with like Amazon and McDonald's.
Where is he located again?
New York.
Tonawanda.
Tonawanda. Yeah, he's in New York, and he also, the new facility is going to combine two separate divisions that are in other locations in New York. But yeah, it's
forcing manufacturers to get innovative in different ways.
Yeah.
When we talk about innovation in manufacturing, we're talking about technology, production efficiencies, all of that. This is more, I guess, set up the way you set your company up and the way that you structure it. What's interesting, what I think about now is we just saw a report, I think it was this morning, that came out, unemployment is down to 5%. How do we have an unemployment rate? Like right now, it's just week after week, we're hearing these things about these manufacturers struggling to find people. They're paying them well. They're offering to train them.
Yeah.
I mean, what's stopping folks? I don't mean to sound like I'm 80 here, but like, get a job.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on?
Does it grind your gears?
Oh, man.
It really does.
Unintended pun.
Sorry. Usually that's your job.
I'll get one in there. All right. Anna, what was your In Case You Missed It this week?
So Algeria, the last country on earth to be using leaded gasoline, has stopped providing leaded gasoline, prompting the UN Environmental Agency to declare the official end of its use in cars, which has been blamed for a wide range of human health problems, as we know. So leaded gas is officially dead. It's easy to forget that it was still being produced because it was banned in the U.S. in like the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
But after which, lead levels in Americans' blood actually plummeted.
Good.
Yeah, I know.
David, is that a good thing, David?
Do you think it's good?
That's kind of one of your segues, isn't it? David, that's a good thing, right?
I think it's controversial.
I'm pro-lead. Get off your anti-lead agenda.
Well, we know a lot about the health implications of lead. Most of us know.
Yeah.
But there are environmental ones as well. And I thought it was interesting because the report cites how rich countries began to phase out leaded fuel. But then the UN just finally said enough is enough, and they tried to abolish it globally, and it worked.
Yeah.
This is it working. So UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that the successful abolition of leaded gas, like the ban on ozone-depleting chemicals, showed the impact that international treaties could have on addressing environmental issues. And we must now turn the same commitment to ending the triple crises of climate disruption, biodiversity loss, and pollution. I thought that was very powerful. And I think for the naysayers who say that poor countries can't or won't get on board with global initiatives targeting carbon cuts, let's take this as an opportunity to be optimistic and maybe set some ambitious targets and try to work towards them. That was what I took from this. It was like, some of this stuff, I think people get really down on our prospects, and it's hard not to. It's pretty bleak looking at some of these climate reports. But we close that hole in the ozone layer, leaded gas is done. Like, let's try to make some progress here on climate change. I think we can try.
Yeah, and this is like you said, a good indicator that it's possible.
It's possible.
Jeff, as your 80-year-old self, do cars just not drive the same now that lead's not in the gas?
Yeah,
I think we're good there.
In the 1900s, early 1900s, were you a leaded gas?
Like my kids. Were you in school with Abraham Lincoln? That was actually something they like to do. So, no, I mean, that's great. I had to actually reread this. Like, I couldn't believe that was still a thing, to be honest.
I know.
Yeah. That was kind of crazy. Good for the UN. They finally got one.
That one.
The pained look in your face.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
Jeff's excited. He's nursing a lawnmower injury, remember, so he's not at his best today.
We're almost there. Jeff, what was in case you missed it this week?
So I think this has been out there. Maybe it just didn't pop on our sites as much because it's been a lot of other places. But I'm sort of captivated by this whole thing around Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. I watched the documentary. I've read a bunch of stuff on it. For those who aren't familiar, she was
visionary.
Just the Steve Jobs supposedly of the home medical health initiative. She was an entrepreneur out in Silicon Valley. She supposedly had developed a machine for home blood testing.
Yeah.
So basically, get a blood test. It would tell you anything and everything you want to know about disease, cancer, everything.
Yeah.
Right. The only problem is she got a ton of money and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And it never was going to work. She never knew how to make it work.
Yeah.
But she just kept taking more and more money. She's finally going to trial for a list of different fraud charges. And this article was kind of like, okay, this starts, and it's all of these things that are against her that are very obvious that she did wrong. She lied. She was kind of a bully internally to people, making them manipulate different data and reports, both financially and like product development wise.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, of all this coming out to now going to trial, she's got married and she has a child.
Yeah.
And they're wondering what impact, like the social dynamic that she now presents, will people still see her as sort of the monster, maybe too hard of a word, but this lying, manipulative corporate individual who basically bilked hundreds of millions of dollars out of several investors.
Are you accusing her of a PR baby?
I don't think she did it on purpose, but it's an interesting thought process. Like, how would that impact how they're going to look at her?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I've seen reports about that. They think the jury may be more sympathetic to her because she has a newborn baby.
Yeah. Well, I like the story because I like to talk about how CEOs fake it till they make it. And she is just the gold standard of not making it.
The documentary.
And faking it. I mean, very like to another level.
Yeah.
Impressive.
The part of the documentary that I enjoyed was when she was like blatantly lying in front of the engineers who were not making what she wanted to have happen. And they're just like, she's like, yeah, it's got to do this. And they're like, it's not going to do that.
We can't do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess the jury's still out on that story. Final thoughts. Let's move on to Jeff first because I have been eagerly anticipating this lawnmower incident story.
I think I set this up way too much.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
Okay.
So
Well,
actually,
your
my
entire
final
leg is
thought
bandaged.
came to me when I was cutting the grass last night because I wasn't sweating buckets. Like it was nice outside.
Yeah.
But that was interrupted by the fact, have you ever been stung by a hornet?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Man, I ran over a hornet's nest with the lawnmower and like 4 of them.
Yeah.
And I thought like I kicked something up, like I hit a rock or something like that, because it felt like when a log on the campfire pops or something, and you just get that little like shard that shoots at you, and just for a minute it burns.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
And I looked down and I had like 3 of them on my legs.
Yeah.
And the one of them got me right on like the ankle bone.
Yeah.
It still hurts.
Yeah.
I felt like the biggest baby. I was out there swearing and people are probably like, what is wrong with this guy? And I'm just swatting at my legs because these hornets just like tore up my shins.
Yeah.
Hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Because my thought was going to be like, it's going to be the fall of the year, which is so nice. Like it's been nice and cool at night. And when we're playing softball and stuff, football starts.
Yeah.
Great things to look forward to. Then the hornets struck.
Then the hornets struck.
Yeah. No, though.
I just want it to freeze so they die.
Hornets and bees have been particularly bad this summer. We had 3 different stings this weekend at the cottage.
Well, like bees are kind of one thing, but man, I had never been stung by a hornet before. Oof, that hurt.
I had a really bad incident when I was a kid. My dad had an old postal worker Jeep that he just used around the house. I thought it would just be fun.
Used around the house.
Yeah, it's like
Drove around doing laundry.
Well, I mean, he's a farmer, so we got plenty of equipment that's not doing a lot of stuff out there. But I thought it would be cool to go in there and hang out in the Jeep, and there was a hornet's nest, which I guess is proof as to how much we used it. But a hornet's nest had formed in the passenger seat, and they attacked my ear. And it was just like, all of a sudden, I'm just like pretending to drive in that hot fire on my face.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was horrible.
I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
Man. Whew.
And we are the my girl generation, so the trauma of the bee stings, no, so I feel for you there. Ice that thing, man. Get that stinger out of there. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
I'm really glad I don't have a hornet story.
Yeah,
They're coming for you.
By the time most of you see this, Labor Day weekend will be over. But for us, it's about to start.
Yeah.
And I don't have any plans, and I don't know if that's good or bad. Probably, according to the CDC, it's probably good.
Yeah.
But we're just going to hang out. And as Jeff said, hopefully enjoy like a little bit cooling off temperatures because my kids are like really over the inflatable pool that at the beginning of the summer is like everyone's super excited to use it. Now they're like, oh, the pool again. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
it's nothing like
it's pumpkin patch time. It's apple picking time. Let's get to that.
There you go.
yeah, nothing like trying to fill an extra day with children. It's like, hey, what are you gonna do for the long weekend? I'm gonna barely survive. How about yourself? I'm gonna make it until bedtime. Then I'm gonna drink until I sleep. No. My final thought this week, other than use in moderation, is we have a couple of cool taste tests coming up. And I just wanted to shout that out because we haven't tried them yet. We just got a box of meat sticks. And what did you get? Some salsa?
Some organic like chili salsa. Yeah.
Oh, right
Should be
on.
good.
Yeah, so we'll be shooting that. So those will be dropping this week too. So make sure to check those out. All right. So before we get out of here, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. To email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com. With email the podcast in the subject line. Also, make sure to subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it in your inbox first. All right, for Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti, and this is the Today in Manufacturing podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.